At the end of May, the Atma Classic record label released the debut recording by Canadian pianist Élisabeth Pion entitled Femmes de Légende. This CD consists of music written by French composers that has probably not been recorded very often or indeed at all. Piano miniatures by such composers as Melanie Bonis, Lily Boulanger, and Andrée-Thérèse feature prominently on the CD and are performed with a wonderful sense of delicacy, color, character, and intimacy by Pion. For those unfamiliar with the pianist Élisabeth Pion, she is now based in London and has been very active as a soloist, chamber musician, and artistic collaborator. She made her BBC Radio 3 broadcast debut in 2019 and Wigmore Hall's solo recital debut in 2021. Closer to home, she has performed with the Val and Victoria Symphony Orchestras, as well as the Ariel Baroque Orchestra. Last year, she was awarded the Jeunesse Musicale Choquette Simcox Prize for Artistic Excellence. And she has done all of this while still not reaching the age of 30. And joining me here virtually over Zoom, I am joined by pianist Élisabeth Pion. Hey, Elizabeth, it's good to see you and good to meet you here.
Hello, Chris. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to meet you.
Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to say what a terrific recording this is. I love these pieces. I also love the fact that the music is off of the beaten path, music that we never hear. And thanks for a great addition to our Classic 107 music library. It's a great disc.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it because it's always a kind of I fell in love with those pieces, but then to have the audience reaction and realize other people also enjoy it it's always great.
I want to start out by just talking about you. You're in London doing an artist diploma at the Guildhall School. When do you graduate? And can you talk a little bit about where you went to school prior to moving to London?
Basically, I've graduated already. So I did both my artist master's and my artist diploma in London. So I moved here in 2018, actually. So it's already been a while. And this year I'm finishing the fellowship at the Guildhall, which is a kind of insertion into the professional world. So basically you exchange like services to the school. So I actually built a Tai Chi class for musicians because I also think quite a bit in Tai Chi. And I taught that at the beginning of this year. And in exchange, you still get a bit of coachings and access to the rehearsal rooms. But basically, this is ending in July. And yeah, before then, I was studying in Montreal and I studied with André Laplante and Suzanne Goyette mainly. So, yeah. And in London, it's with Ronald Hora, who is my mentor and fantastic musician in mind. Yeah.
Amazing. The CD Femmes de Légende consists of music that I've never heard before. Where did you find this music? And can you talk about how the program for the CD came together?
So I'm just someone who's very curious by nature. So I love browsing on YouTube, just finding pieces that I don't know. And I stumble upon a recording of Femmes de Légende by Maria Stembolowska. Anyway, you will find it really easily. It's one of the only ones that is out there. And I listened to it one time and then I couldn't help but go back to it. And then I showed it to some friends and I was like, this is such good music. I don't know why I've never heard of it. And then I searched for the score. I found the Association Melanie Bonis in France, which is run by her granddaughter, actually. So I wrote to her, got the score and started to work on it. And I was just so excited about this discovery because it's quite a big cycle. So I was just shocked also that I had never heard about it before. So it kind of got me into searching for more of those kind of, unheard pieces. And there are so many of them out there. It feels because I was like, maybe after a while, I won't find more material, but actually the more I dig, the more things there are. So it's kind of endless, but it's like this in pretty much anything in life. And then for the rest of the program, it's I think it came together quite naturally because I love French music. So it's been a while that I also find it's quite natural music for me, or at least, well, natural is like work but concealed. So it's music that I've been growing with for quite a bit of time, and that showcase composers that I've discovered and that I felt really close to. So like Dutilleux, I love his music. And then when I discovered this cycle, not that he kind of rejected it, but he didn't consider it as his, mature pieces. But I always find it interesting to see how people have come to become who they are, and, to not shy away from all the little people that evolved on the way to becoming a great master, And I do find those miniature pieces are already great music. Lily Boulanger, then it's just, when I did the BBC broadcast, it was a piece by her that I played. And it's my teacher, Ronan, who introduced me to her music. So yeah, it just came together with some thought. And yeah.
The CD is Femmes de Légende, and it's named for this really great set of 7 pieces by Melanie Bonis that were written over 15 years. Can you talk about the backstory behind that? She didn't envision the pieces as being a cycle, and they're named for memorable women such as like Salome, Desdemona, etc. Can you talk about that cycle a bit?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, I love the fact that she chose this subject. So there is Mélisande that we know from Debussy's Péléas in Mélisande, but it's great to see it from another angle. Then a lot of women from mythology and from Shakespeare. So Hamlet and Othello. So we have Desdemona, Mélisande. No, not Mélisande, sorry, Ophélie. And then
Ophelia,
Viviane. And I just thought it was very interesting to see how she was able to put a kind of different color and different melodies to each one of those characters. And to me, they really came alive, and I could see them, And I just felt she was really able to extract the essence of each one of them. And it's interesting because the granddaughter of Melanie Bonis, who runs the association, she wrote to me actually after she heard my recording, and she was really moved to hear it. Because she put so much work into it, and no one wanted to have those pieces neither edited or played for a very long time until the end of the 1990s. And actually, she told me the idea of putting all of them together under the title Femmes de Légende is her idea. And that then she convinced the editions Furory to keep it like that. And I just thought it was such a good idea that I also kept it for the CD. And if you're curious about it, there are a few of them which are also orchestrated. And she has other legendary women as orchestral pieces like Cleopatra, but she's not in the 7 of the solo piano. But fantastic composer and really much, I think, a visionary. And her music is very free and improvisatory, but also you can really recognize elements from the French language you typically find in those years. But I just found that I found a real voice and a real a real musical discourse that is worth being heard by more people.
Absolutely. How much piano music did she write? Do you know?
A lot of it. A lot, because basically, also if you put yourself back in context, she had to change her name to Mel because her name was Melanie. This is not that long ago. It's like 100 years ago. But she couldn't get published. And the thing is, at that time, women didn't have that much access to bigger ensembles like orchestras because that was just not part of what they had access to because of their gender. So women at the time had access to a lot of pianos because it was more in the intimate sphere. So also for a pianist like me, it's amazing to see the number of scores by women composers because, I mean, while they were taking care of children and everything, they could also write music at the piano. It was something that could fit in their life because it's not, music is not kind of side by side with life, is inside of it. So yeah, she wrote a lot for piano, and there's a hell of a lot of good stuff if people want to look for it.
There's another cycle, and you're going to have to help me with the pronunciation of the title. It's by Dutilleux. It's a cycle of pieces called Au gré des ondes. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's good. Yes.
which translates to "by the waves." When I heard them, the first thing I thought about was it reminds me a lot of like Satie's
Yeah.
piano miniatures. There's a lot. They're full of character and wit. Uh,
Yeah.
can you talk about the title is a play on words? Can you talk a little bit about that a bit?
Yeah. Yeah, basically, it's Dutilleux had a very witty spirit, I think, and very generous man, beautiful person. That's also one part of why I fell in love with the music. But it was pieces he wrote for the radio at the time, so it was about the waves, the wavelength of sound. And then he just wrote those little characteristic pieces, for the radio at the time. So that's the
Yeah.
backstory.
So the waves in question are radio waves.
Yeah.
One of the other things I find fascinating about the CD is you've recorded all of Lily Boulanger's piano music on the CD,
Yeah.
just those pieces. Can you talk about who she was? I've heard that her sister, Nadia Boulanger, considered Lily to actually be a better composer than her. Nadia Boulanger, of course, being the renowned composition teacher, etc.
Yeah.
Can you talk about her a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think Nadia Boulanger was not bad herself, you know.
Yeah.
But I think she's right that Lily's music has very much a flavor of its own, and to me it's highly mystical music. She won the Prix de Rome in the beginning of the 20th century, which was quite big for the time. She was the first woman to win it. And basically, she died very young. She was only 24 of tuberculosis because it was after the war. She always had a kind of very frail health. What is amazing about her music is the depth of it for such a young person. There's so much music for choir as well, if you want to look it up. And recently, the Guildhall Symphony performed her psalm, and I was so moved to hear it live. The strength, you know, there is some kind of music that just takes you into another world, and to me, her music is like that. And she didn't write that much for solo piano. So basically, it's the variations, the three pieces, and the prelude. But for me, example, the prelude is just out of this world. It's so beautiful. And it's amazing to me how she's able to encapsulate so much in such a short amount of time as well. And she was a wonderful woman, wonderful composer. And all her life, her sister Nadia just promoted her work after she was dead. And her last work, the Pierizu, she how do you say that? Like she told to her sister because she couldn't write anymore at the end of her life. But Nadia took it.
She dictated it. Yeah, dictated. Yeah.
Thank you. She did it, and so Nadia was such an ardent defender of her music, and they are really a kind of fascinating duo. So yeah, I really wanted to pay tribute to her music, which I find is not programmed enough for the quality of the music she made, and I just have deep love and admiration for this composer. So.
One of the things I found interesting about the pieces by Lily Boulanger is there's this contrast between the three pieces, which are sort of more easygoing and light, and then the theme and variations, which is very dense and big, and in some places quite dark. It's quite something.
Yeah, well, I this is what you find in any great composer, but you find it really strongly in her music, is this interplay of light and darkness in a lot of her compositions. So sometimes your heart is just lifted because it's so gorgeous and it's smiling and everything, and the second after you're like in deep hell, and it's just you're like, whoa, what happened? But I guess that's also what I love about her music, is just she understands both worlds very well.
Can you talk about your relationship with the composer Thomas Adès and why you wanted to record the Berceuse on the CD? Can you talk about that friendship a bit?
Yes. I met with Thomas Adès last year in 2022 in Prussia Cove. And I was there with my trio back then, and I just really loved working with him. And that's what I find with great musicians and great mind. A lot of the time, they are also amazing human beings. So he was so generous with his time and so generous with his explanations and trying to help us see the music from a composer's point of view, which is so relevant, and I think it's so helpful to see how they envision music, and it helps us a lot as interpreters as well. But yeah, and then his music also, I had been a fan for a long time, so just to meet him and work with him in person, I was just so happy. And it was a guy I knew actually who was playing the berceuse in a concert he was giving, and I was just like, this piece is great. And since I had met Adès during this festival and I knew about him, I was just really wanting again to champion his music. So I guess I need to also like the composer I'm defending. So yeah, and the piece itself is a kind of modern gibet. I think I felt it like that a little bit. And yeah, I thought it was an interesting add to the album because there are so many links between France and the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found also the universe, the sound universe Adès works in has many ties to French language. So this kind of love of deep basses with like high notes on top, and the kind of cathedral feeling that his music has, I thought was very relevant with the rest of the album, because at the beginning I was like, is it a good idea to, put that with other French music? But I do think it fits really well. And also it shows another side of my practice, which is I love working with composers, and I would like to do that more actually. And it's music that has been written quite recently, because basically it's the piano version of the berceuse from his opera, The Exterminating Angel, which is based on a Buñuel movie. And also just that kind of intricacy of different art forms put together by a composer, that's really something that interests me. And then it's very fun to look for colors and voicings and stuff. So I just thought it would be interesting to put it there.
Yeah. There's even a piece on the CD, a little morsel written by you. Can you talk about the piece "Balcony on a Wednesday Night"? How did that piece come about?
Basically, I was back then I was working on Chopin preludes, and I just wrote a few preludes also, just for fun. Because basically it had been such a long time I wanted to write music, but I just wouldn't dare to do it. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, and it's just difficult to make the first jump into the void because I haven't had any like formal training in composition. But I do think you integrate forms and phrasing and stuff just because you spend so many hours every day playing music. So I just thought maybe it's time, to give myself that space. And yeah, that's a piece I wrote actually during lockdown on a Wednesday night. So that's a very easy title, but I just found this piece would suit the album really well because it's in the same kind of spirit. So I didn't feel it was too much of a kind of shock. And also, again, it's a bit to show the different aspects of my artistic practice, because I love composing. I love, even though I'm still, just putting my toe inside of it, but I would like to, put my whole feet eventually and like really go for it. And also I love writing cadenzas for classical concertos. So I just felt as a first album, I really wanted to put out in the world as many aspects of my artistic practice as possible. So I was like, it's just a minute and a half, so if people don't like it, they can just skip it. but yeah, for now I've had good feedbacks, and it actually just encourages me to do more of it. So yeah.
That's great. The CD came out right at the end of May. Are there plans for you to record to perform any of the pieces in the near future?
Actually, I just performed them in the Festival Classica in Canada. So I had the two concerts there. One was the release of the album, which I picked most of the pieces that you can find on it, and also a sonata by Cécile Chaminade, which is not on the CD, but I would love to record it one day. It's such a good piece. And then I had a trio concert with some some friends, but for now the CD, it's more about trying to promote it, send it to as many people as possible. The CD is not physically available yet in like UK, Japan, Germany, everything, but this will come in August. So for now, it's more of a promotional phase where I'm contacting a lot of people to see if there are opportunities to play that music around. But yeah, we'll see what life brings.
Fantastic. Elizabeth, this has just been so great getting to know you and talk about the CD. All the best. Like I say, the CD is fantastic. Hopefully in the future, you can come to Winnipeg and we can speak in person. Thanks for taking the time to talk with me today.
I would love that. So yeah, one day, certainly. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.